Hey, what's up, Good Life? Thanks for joining me for today's 128 moment. You know, the human existence could be described as the ongoing pursuit of pleasure. We strive for more and more pleasure at every turn. We want to do what we want. We want to do it when we want to do it. We want to do it around the people that we want to do it around. We all live to seek pleasure and to seek happiness. Now, we may use different means, but the motives for every action remains the same. From our first moments to our last moments, pleasure drives what we do. Pleasure drives a doctor to try and earn that degree, but it also draws a gambler to go to his games. Pleasure greets a bride and groom at the altar, but it also entices an adulterer to walk away from his or her vows. Like, pleasure draws us to the love of God, but it also lures us away into the clutches of sin. At the core of life, we're all driven by the pursuit of pleasure. But our pursuit of passing pleasures, the wrong pleasures in the wrong ways, no matter that source, it's the greatest barrier to our understanding of our purpose in life. Because finding purpose in pleasure never ends well. Because somewhere along the way, we've become convinced that following Jesus guarantees less enjoyment. It guarantees less pleasure. That pleasure must decrease in order for obedience to increase. And that turning to God is turning to less. But we've been dead wrong. Surrendering your life to Christ is not the end of a hedonistic life. Hedonism is really just merely the pursuit of pleasure. Following God's will and following His ways is the best route to the most pleasure. Pleasure that makes this world's delights seem like misery. So turning to God is embracing the most pleasure-filled life possible. It's just not in the way that we think. The language of pleasure is all over the Bible, over and over again, from page to page to page. We see it. In Psalm 63, it says, "O God, you're my God, I earnestly seek you. My soul thirsts for you, my flesh faints for you, as a dry and weary land where there is no water." Psalm 42, "As a deer pants for streams of water, so my soul longs for you, God. My soul thirsts for God, for the living God." And in Psalm 19, "In your presence there is fullness of joy. At your right hand are pleasures forevermore." We're built for pleasure, and John Piper puts it beautifully, puts it simply, puts it this way. He says, God is most glorified in us when we are most satisfied in Him. We will never find satisfaction until we fulfill our purpose. And if we are saved, and if you are saved, then you're a child of God, a child of God in the family of God. And God created you and He saved you for His glory. And the two most important days of your life are the day you're born and the day you realize why you're born. And the reason you're here is to bring glory to the one who gave you life. And life will never have any meaning. Life will never have any joy until that goal is your primary pleasure. Now, sadly, our pursuit of pleasure on our terms, it makes us an obstacle to God's purposes in our lives. But when our delight is in the Lord, when we are captivated by Christ and His love overwhelms every other pleasure, there won't be anything else that's going to get in the way of Him. Nothing else but Him will do. How in the world did the saints and martyrs of old go to their deaths, singing hymns and shouting praises? It was because their primary source of pleasure was knowing Jesus and making Him known. Their wiring for pleasure had been changed. The same needs and motivations were there. They just stopped being satisfied with the scraps of this world. They had found Jesus and they found their pleasure in living for Him. They discovered the joy of finding their purpose and their pleasure in Christ alone. Here's the big idea. Finding purpose in pleasure never ends well. If you try and find purpose in pleasure, you get neither. But if your pleasure is found in living out your purpose, you get both and you get so much more. When Jesus is your source of pleasure, then you discover your purpose. So, Good Life, is your life singularly focused on giving God the glory that He deserves? To answer that question with a resounding yes, we need God to redeem our understanding, our definition of what pleasure really is. Where are you today on this pleasure versus purpose continuum? I want Jesus to be glorified in me because I'm satisfied in nothing less than Him. And I want that for you, and I want that for our Good Life Church family. I want us to be a people who are united around the purpose of God and living in the pleasure of serving God. That our church and our family will find our greatest pleasure in living out God's greatest purpose to give Him the glory that He deserves. We'll be talking more about this on Sundays. We continue our Family of God series, looking to be how we are His people, living for His purpose. We'll be at the church 9:30 and 11 o'clock online. Hopefully you can join us. And until then, let's be a people who love enough.